Hey, this is the franchise Shane Douglas, ECW's original World Heavyweight Champion. Right now, you're watching the #1 wrestling podcast on all of Long Island, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
And you're watching the Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 Monty and Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and Pharaoh.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh. To the Monty and the Pharaoh Show. And it's Monty and the Pharaoh, baby.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, what a rush.
We've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff and we gonna rock it.
Straight to the top. We're living this life, not just dreaming it, we're doing it for it. Straight to the top. Working hard every day just to leave out that tower.
All right, welcome to another episode, a special episode of Monty and the Pharaoh, along with associate producer of The Wrestler and 350 Days, Mr. Evan Ginsberg, also host of the Evan Ginsberg Show here on Village Connection Radio.
Thanks for having me back.
And none other than Hall of Famer, WWE, NWA, AWA, all-time super wrestler, and our fan favorite, Greg, the Hammer Valentine. We are honored. Thank you, sir, for taking this time with us.
Waking up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and have to drink some coffee and go wrestle. You know, it was a crazy schedule. And even when we were flying all over the place, you know, you ever tried to go to sleep? You're all wound up for this big wrestling match in Chicago, and then it's over and you try to go back to the hotel and go to sleep, and you're all like, you can't go to sleep, give me a break. And they got a flight for you at 7 in the morning to wherever. I says, I'm leaving and I'm quitting and I'm not telling anybody. I had like 10 more shows to do, and I got on the airplane and flew home, and I was by myself on the airplane. My God, there was nobody on it. And who gets up in first class and goes to the bathroom is Hogan. So all of a sudden, you know, he's like Vince's right-hand guy back there. Maybe, I don't know. But I'd hide. Don't see me.
Hey, brother.
Well, he must. So I mean, we were friends and we were close, but I didn't want him to see me on. He knows I'm supposed to be on the road, right? So I don't know if he saw me or not, but I kept hiding, and he never came back. So I get home.
Oh my God.
And I'm home for about 4 or 5 hours, and I get a phone call, and it's Vince McMahon. And what are you doing? I mean, it got out, so I figured it came from Hogan. And I talked to him, and I hung up on him, I swear.
Really?
And then he called back, and I talked to him a total of 5 hours, and he talked me into coming back.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And I had a deal to go to WCW then, to be one of the Four Horsemen. Wow. Barry Windham was turning babyface, so it was a hot. And J.J. Dillon, it was his idea, I guess. And Jim Ross called me, and so they were trying to pull me. And I met a lot then, you know, so to go in there as being one of the 4 horsemen would have been great for my career.
Oh my God.
And I let Vince screw that up for me.
You worked under Crockett, McMahon, and Bischoff within certain
Yeah.
areas. What's the difference between the 3?
Well, I love, Vince and me, we're still friends, and I understand the way he thinks, and he's the boss. I had a good run up here, so whatever. So, and always, he put me in the Hall of Fame, so I've had a good run with him.
Right.
And Jim Crockett, I had a good run with Jim Crockett. Eric Bischoff, I never jived with Eric Bischoff. He just hung near Hogan, and he didn't know what he was doing. Vince McMahon, at least, was not a wrestler. He ran the company. Pat Patterson was by his side, and they did it, and they knew what they were doing a year ahead of time. And sometimes 2 years ahead of time. WCW didn't know what they were doing for next Nitro. They blew it because of Eric Bischoff, Bill Watts, wrestlers, Dusty Rhodes, God rest his soul, but he screwed it up too. You can't have a wrestler that's still wrestling running the friggin' company.
Right.
So the NWO had 4 guys, right? Then that was great. Then they had 5. Then they had 6, and they had 8, 9, 10. Then they had the NWO Spanish version. Well, I remember Dick Murdoch and Bill Watts. I was in Oklahoma, and they said, your dad's had a bad plane crash. And first thing oh my God, he's died. But then they said, he survived it, but he's hurt.
Is it broken back?
Yeah, broke his back 5 or 6 different places.
Okay.
I went to see him, and it was bad. And Jimmy Crockett was there every day. He was the guy that took Mid-Atlantic and really made it big. And he goes, I'm passing the torch to him. I'm finished. And he said that right in front of me, and I was like,
wow.
I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I probably did cry later on.
Can you tell us a little bit your experiences with Bob Backlund as champion on your first run around WWE or F?
What are we talking, 79?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going in there doing a lot of TV and stuff, and they're getting me ready to wrestle Backlund. But I really wasn't I know it was figure 4 people, and they were carrying him out on a stretcher. And then I found out I was going to be in the Garden as my first match in New York, and right to the top against Bob Backlund. So it was a little intimidating, but I was, with this figure 4, I was made already. So I'm thinking, I'm kind of worried about what the finish is, what the outcome's going to be. I'd done nothing but long matches in Mid-Atlantic, and I was sick and tired of doing hour Broadways and long matches. I go, wow, I'm going to go to New York, and they have nothing but short matches there.
So you were surprised when they asked you to do this hour thing?
I went, oh
come
no.
on. Oh, come on.
I want a friggin' break.
Right.
And Bob Backlund, I watched him work. I said, that's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, he was great.
Wrestle him for an hour.
Sure. Did you have a lot of talking with him before?
No, I didn't talk to him at all.
Wow.
We're going to go 1 hour Broadway in the Garden.
Incredible.
My first time there. But here's what happened. I worked with him, and I didn't try to punch him, and we just wrestled. And he was in such good shape that most of his matches, he never blew up ever, and he wouldn't sell for the guy. And
He wouldn't sell.
so the people didn't really get behind him, and he just beat him. And the guys didn't know how to work with him. Well, me going an hour Broadway, after 20 minutes, he finally got tired. So now I'm going to hold him down. I say, Bob, just stay down and sell this. And he respected me, and we liked each other. And I respected him as a shooter and a double tough son of a bitch that could have got mad at me and tore my leg off. But we're out there doing business. And he respected me that, he knew I was a little bit tough, but not a wrestling tough like him. So we learned how to work together. I love Bob Backlund after that match, then we always had good matches, and I could lay in some chops on him, but with him it wasn't about that. It was wrestling back and forth, And I really learned how to wrestle from him. I learned some amateur stuff.
But a lot of the former wrestlers speak about Backlund as almost bankrupting the WWF back then because he wasn't a draw.
Is there any legitimacy to that, Greg? That Backlund was a poor draw? Because Mike and I talk about it, and we don't recall that.
We used to go to the Garden regularly. We don't recall.
Well,
was Backlund
when
bad
I
for
wrestled
business
him,
after a
we
while?
drew.
Yeah, I guess it was true.
They should have just kept me for 3 years going against just keep going.
Probably would have been a good idea.
Don't bring anybody else in.
But what would have been so wrong by putting the belt on you? Let you guys exchange it a couple of times.
Well, they held it up.
Vince.
They held it up the second time.
Yeah.
But I don't know what stopped it. I was in line to get it, and I should have got it, and then I could have wrestled everywhere, and then Vince gave it back to Backlund.
How about October 19th, 1981? Where you actually are smart enough to hop up first and the referee gives you the belt. And you walk out of Madison Square Garden as champion. I'm still angry that they took it away from you.
It was set up like that, double pin.
Rats.
And we both had our shoulders down, but they wanted to hold belt. They wanted to hold the belt back up. Excuse me. They wanted to hold the belt up.
Right.
And Ernie Roth, my manager, the Grand Wizard, kept saying, "You might get the belt. You might get the belt." So for about a month, I couldn't sleep. Right.
Yeah.
And, I want that belt.
Yeah. I wanted you to have that
Didn't you actually defend the belt one time? I thought in the Spectrum they actually had you defend the title.
After you walked out that night with the belt? You told us you
Not
got
the
some
world
pictures
belt,
taken with it.
But I got pictures taken with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So let me ask you this. You've worked with many champions. Which champion drew the most money for you?
I drew money for myself when I was a champion.
Right.
Yeah. Put the belt on me, I'll draw your money.
Compare Hogan's drawing power to...
I'm just going to bring this up.
There you go.
You can talk about Hulk Hogan all you want. I'd go in there and wrestle him, and I wouldn't hardly have to do anything for 10, 15 minutes, whatever. He'd do 15 minutes. I didn't have to do nothing because he was so over. But he knew how to sell me, too.
Right.
And he was much bigger than me.
Right.
And I had the guy was so over, and he could beat you and it still didn't hurt you. And he used to tell me, this wasn't part of the finish, he'd say, "Hammer, put the figure 4 on me after I beat you."
Nice.
And so I got my heat back.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Right. How is Hulk Hogan as a person to you?
I love the guy.
I love this. This is great. I love hearing good things about Hulk Hogan because I love Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I do too. He was always genuine to me. He loved my dad. He used to watch my dad in Florida. And he's still right up to this day. We still text once in a while and emails, and Julie, he loves my wife Julie, and
How would you measure his importance and contributions to this business if you could? Where would you put him? I mean, if you had to.
Out of
it's
all
not
the
an
guys,
easy question.
I'm still gonna. I mean, I love The Rock, and I like John Cena, all these other guys.
Sure,
but
sure.
Hogan's number one banana.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
Listen, I want to get back to the Grand Wizard and some of those managers back of yesteryear, Albano, Freddie Blassie.
Oh,
How was your relationship with the Grand Wizard? And do you have any good stories to tell about Ernie?
Loved him.
Great. Oh, he always worried so much, and he would call me up all the time when he lived in Fort Lauderdale. And he'd tell me, he was a worry wart, but what a great guy,
Manager of champions.
I actually when Vincent moved to Florida, I actually took Julie and I, we went down to see him at his place, Fort Lauderdale. So he was a personal friend. He was like a real manager. He wasn't just someone they stuck with me.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Incredible.
What was if you have to pick one, what is your favorite match that you were involved in your career? If you have a favorite match, any possible way you might have one, or are there just too many?
There's too many favorites.
Okay. What do you feel was your most important match? The one that you're going to be most remembered for? Because Bart and I just saw an awesome dog collar match today.
I was going to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the stuff I did with Tito and Hogan and
Roddy.
British Bulldogs up here.
Right.
The people eventually saw that up here. And, yeah, that's got to be the most cherished one. I know we were trying to set an example, and and we did a good job of that. And I remember being WWE like 10 years later, and so people were seeing me all the time. Oh, we just saw that match, a dog collar match. It was before DVDs were out, but they'd come out with a VHS, and that was on some thing from Great Matches or something.
Did you and Roddy discuss anything about the match beforehand?
I'd never been in any kind of match like that before. I hadn't even been in I've been in a Chief J Strongbow strap match.
Okay.
It's basically kind of like that psychology.
Broke his leg too.
Yes. God bless him. He was a great guy. Oh my God, it was like a night off.
Really? Okay.
All he did was shake, and I'd hit him. He'd shake some more, and I'd hit him some more.
The only Italian Indian
and then he'd
I know.
attack.
Yeah, the Italian Indian.
He'd attack and dance and give me some chops, and I'd take a bump and
the
I'd
fans
screw
loved
up.
him too. He got a huge pop.
It was, but Pat Patterson told me one time, he'd laugh. He'd go, "Greg, you did all the work." I said, "Yeah, but he did like 5 different comebacks on me." But I would just stay on him, and it was great. It was the easiest money I ever made. And he never hurt me because I couldn't feel it, you know.
But did you and Piper work out anything beforehand?
No, he just came over to me. We weren't that close yet, you know.
Okay.
We were sort of close.
Okay.
But I mean, we came real close after this, and that's strange, right?
Right.
After we mutilate each other.
You know.
He came over, and I had no idea, but he gave me some secrets how to work it. And when he says, when I go outside, you wrap the thing and pull me like that, and just different gimmicks that you could do with it. Wrap the chain around the head.
Right. Because I don't know whose idea it was, but at the beginning of the match, and I was talking with Bart about this today, the two of you were standing and staring at each other and pulling with your necks. That is fantastic. Who came up with that? That's great.
We talked about that
great.
before. But then when he was in the ring, he was kind of talking to me. He says, because I'd never worked that kind of match.
Okay.
So then I got it. You know, we need to use the chain every time we could. And then I had a spot where I set up where I had him beat down, and I put the chain kind of like between my legs, and I'd walk off, and he went boom like that.
Hit them high notes, Greg.
It was, it was great, and
great match.
But I remember rapping. He always called me a stiff sausage fingers son of a stiff son of a, and so I wrapped a chain around his head, and he's sitting down, and he's already gigged his ear, and he's bleeding all over the place, and I drop an elbow on his head, and the chain being so tight, almost maybe it did knock him out.
Wow.
And he's saying, he got out of there, and I blocked him, and I'm not going to stand there and go ahead, hit me. I'm blocking him. Well, that's way. It looks like a real fight anyway.
Right.
These guys ruin the match when they get up there and they don't even try to block a punch coming in. You gotta block it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm definitely blocking these. He still got me on the back of my head and my ear, and he's friggin' killing me. So that is a real match, probably as real as you're gonna get.
Right. And you guys were all blading back in the day, right? Or was that true about Roddy's ear being really that sensitive that it would bust open like that?
To work up to this dog collar match, I would be ramming his head in the ring post.
Right.
And he'd take his own bump, and he'd hit it so hard he'd knock himself out. And then he's cutting his ear. And he mangled his ear. But I got everybody thought, even the other wrestlers thought I really did it because I was stiff. He took his own bump into there, right? I didn't run him in there.
Right.
So he was just one great seller and great guy to work with. And everybody said, how come you never wrestled each other up here in WWF? We were tired of that.
Yeah. Really?
You can't.
Did Vince bring it to you? Like, I got a great idea.
He had a great idea. You go out in Roddy Piper's pit and shake hands.
Really?
That's right. That's right.
That's true.
And I agreed with him.
I got one thing I'm enjoying about the interview. It seems like you have such respect for your coworkers, and you seem to have such a wonderful relationship with them. It's really good to hear.
Well, you got it because you're only as good as your opponent. You got to make your opponent look good, or you don't mean.
Right.
And that's the whole old school of working. And I was always, I'm not going to let some guy kill me off. I'm going to stay over. The only bad part in wrestling is you eventually get older and,
Right.
but I'll still take anybody on.
Wanted to ask you about the Intercontinental reign that you had. It was 285 days. It's the 5th longest reign in WWE history. It ended, to me, in a fitting conclusion where you destroyed the championship.
It was a great ending.
Whose idea was it to destroy the championship? Was that Vince, or was that...
It probably came from Vince.
Okay.
Jay
Did you agree with
was-
that storyline? Were you cool with destroying the belt? Or?
Well, I knew I was going to do the favor. It was coming up, and I liked the outcome of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
I
your
was
feelings
happy
on
with it.
Tito as a person, as somebody you worked with?
Probably the best opponent, number one I ever had. There's some other number ones, but he's definitely a number one.
Do you ever cross paths with him nowadays? Because I think he's still out there doing his thing.
I just talked to him today on the phone.
Oh, there you go. How was your feelings about being at the first WrestleMania? Did you know at the time, like, this is going to be like the Super Bowl of wrestling for the next,
I pretty much had the idea after I was doing a lot of media and they were bringing all these big stars, and I said, this is going to be a big thing. Because Starrcade 83 was closed circuited, and it wasn't on pay-per-views, but that was the first pay-per-view.
Do you have a favorite WrestleMania moment? Anything in particular that stands out for you that you recall most fondly?
Having a decent match with JYD because I never wrestled him before.
Right.
And he wasn't really my style.
A match you won, by the way, after they screwed you out of it afterwards. What is this? This is like a freaking never-ending let's screw Ray Valentine.
I just wanted to get through the match.
Yeah,
and I was happy enough because he's not a guy that goes 40 minutes.
Right.
And we really didn't have an angle except he was over and I had a belt.
Right.
And so it was good enough. It was good. And Tito ran in at the end of it.
Greg, what was a payday for the first WrestleMania?
Ooh.
Is that too much to ask?
What was the payday? Wow. For WrestleMania 1?
Yeah. Drum roll.
What was that?
It was somewhere between 20 grand and somewhere between 20 and 40.
Wow, that's a great payday.
Wow, there's a big in between there.
Congratulations, well deserved.
It was, yeah.
Worth every penny.
I should have been 50, but
You know, and that was a title match. So I wanted to ask you on the subject of titles, what was your personal favorite title that you ever held? The one you think about the most, like this belt's mine. I love this belt. I loved holding this title. Which one would it be for you?
Well, I made a lot of money with a U.S. belt.
Great.
But I guess and I had it 4 different times, so it's right up there. And Intercontinental, I mean, all the championships. I guess I'll go with the IC belt.
Really?
Because WrestleMania.
With the Intercontinental title, WWE all the way.
Makes me happy.
There we
Makes
go.
me happy.
Here's a question I'm sure you've been asked, but I'll ask it anyway. If you could do it all over again, would you change anything?
I'd go get a job somewhere.
What?
Nice.
Lies. Lies. The hammer lying on Monte and the Pharaoh.
Here.
Senior and junior, you worked for both, correct?
Yeah.
What was the difference and weaknesses or strengths? What were your thoughts
How
about this?
similar were they to each other as people?
Well, like father, like son, but no.
Okay.
The father, the old man, was a great guy, a humanitarian. He told me a story one time where he hates to fire guys. He would cry about it.
Senior.
So he had compassion.
Okay.
Captain Lou Albano said, when Vince takes over the kid, you better watch out because if you fall down and have a heart attack, he's going to step right over you and keep on going.
Lou Albano said this.
Yes.
Wow.
And we're all sitting around dinner drinking. He said it right in front of Vinny Jr. And I'm thinking, I'm looking, my vision is way ahead. I go, please, Vince Sr., don't pass away. But he did. But Vince stayed cool for a while.
Right.
But then he started distancing himself from the boys. I mean, I still was treated good, but, you know, it was a different thing. And now he's the man. He's in power. he was a friggin' genius. He did all this, you know. But I think he should take care of the guys that put him there.
Right.
And, you know, especially, he should take care of all the Hall of Fame guys.
Speaking of the Hall of Fame, can you give me 3 members that are not included that you would wish were in the Hall of Fame right now?
Beefcake should be in there. Honky Tonk Man should be in there. And I can't think.
Ivan Koloff.
Yes.
Ivan
Thank
Koloff.
Because
Yeah.
these guys all
Ridiculous.
You know, Vince has put guys in that, not taking anything from Rock and Roll Express, but these guys never worked up here.
Right.
I got to tell you, as far as marking out for tag teams, Dream Team is one of the great tag teams of all
Thank
time.
you.
All time.
Thank you. I believe you really mean that, and
I really do.
I know that I was proud of what we did, and Brutus is proud of that. We really got over here in the Northeast, especially in Canada, and wrestling the Bulldogs. They helped. You know, it was just a good timing is everything really in professional wrestling.
Did you feel pressure to take anabolic steroids during your career to keep up with everybody, or are you purely natural? Because again, what I've read is how superhuman strength you had in articles many times. So,
were you ever tempted by any of that stuff?
Well, there was
a
a doctor around there, Zahorian, 1979,
that guy.
and he kept pushing this stuff on me, and so I tried a little bit of it, and it made me irritable, and it made my face chubby, and I go, I don't need. I got natural genes from my father,
Right.
so I stayed away from it. Thank God.
Good.
I
Wow.
did
Yeah,
a
thank
little
God.
here and there, and I never liked the way it made me. It didn't improve me. So
I have to ask you this before we get off the air. The pro wrestling magazines. Now, back in the day when Mike and I first met in junior high school, we had no access to you when you weren't on WWF programming because cable TV wasn't out yet.
Right.
So we used to go to the stationery store and buy Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Inside Wrestling or The Wrestler, Bill Apter's mags.
Right.
Were you aware at the time? By the way, you were most hated 1975, 1979, and 1983.
Yes,
baby,
yeah,
most
baby.
hated.
Most hated.
Were you aware? And by the we always loved it every time you won. I was like,
absolutely.
yeah, Valentine wins again. But what I thought was great was, were you aware that the magazines at the time were basically the bridge to thousands of fans? Because this is before internet. This is before cable. I mean, what was your take on the wrestling magazines? Were you receptive to them when they came to you? There's a great magazine cover with you and Ric Flair covered in blood.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you remember that one, but wow.
Oh, yeah.
Sure does. Wow.
Well, that was all great, and I was aware of what was going on, and they always sent me a copy, and they, Apter and George Napoleano, they took care of me. I can't think of the guy that ran the company up there, but they all took.
Stanley Weston?
Yes, they
Man.
gave me a lot of cover shots, and they really took good care of me.
Wow.
Wrestling
you,
great.
guys.
Greg the Hammer Valentine for joining us.
Yes,
Once
sir.
again,
Thank you.
I'm going to let the Pharaoh give us a send out because, as many people know, and Greg, you will know that you are the Pharaoh's all-time favorite wrestler.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
I would tell you you're on my list, but Don Morocco is my favorite.
What's your Hey, hold on.
That's okay. I liked it. I liked it when Morocco came to the ring, and they'd shoot the camera right up at him, and he'd go like this.
Yeah, oh yeah, baby.
He'd
What about the time he ate a sandwich?
He'd blow a booger out of his nose right on the camera. I go, that's awesome.
It was our honor to have you on our show.
You
and
guys are
thank
great.
you
You
so much.
You make me feel good. You make me feel comfortable.
Thank you
And
for my childhood,
I
Greg.
could-
And thank you for always being an influence to me. And just thank you for being my favorite wrestler.
All right, that's
And
great.
I feel kind of mushy now. He's the man. Jim, don't cry. Actually, you can cry for me. Go ahead. I have to say this. I can now die in professional wrestling peace.
Holy
In
cow.
professional wrestling peace. I can.
That's
awesome.
This is Long Island's #1 broadcast of pro wrestling, where we only
Yeah,
get
baby.
the real wrestlers,
Yeah,
the real
baby.
pros. Greg the Hammer.
Yeah, baby.